Hello everyone and thanks for coming back to the channel. This is the Mobula 6. There's two different versions of motors. I like the 0802 25,000 kV motors. There's also the 0802 19,000 kV version. Comes with gem fan 31mm props, RunCam Nano 3 FPV camera. The single board is the flight controller, the ESC, the VTX, and the receiver. It also comes with a USB charger, 4 300mAh 1S batteries, a screwdriver, an extra set of props, prop remover. We get 4 extra screws. The 2 black ones are for your canopy and camera. The 2 silver ones are for your motors. We also get a single sheet instruction guide. It weighs just over 19.5 grams. The new RunCam Nano 3 camera weighs just over 1.25 grams. The all-in-one board weighs 4 3/4 grams. I found the battery lead a touch too short to plug in our normal stick batteries. You want your batteries to have a lead on them like these. As we get started, it's worth noting I use a stationary camera for sound, so the audio that you're hearing is not from the DVR, it's not from the machine, it's just a simple camera I've got set up on the table, and I record that sound and I sync it to the DVR footage. Now I should mention that I'm not flying with the stock battery because I couldn't get more than about a 1:40 flight out of the stock battery. So I ended up moving up to a 300, and then after running the 300s for a while, I ended up moving up to the GNB 350 because I found that I could maintain that voltage a little bit longer in my flight in order to be able to control the machine. Because quite frankly, when you're flying 1S and you're trying to go fast, which is what I like that pod racing sort of style where everything kind of whizzes by me, I needed more control over the response of the prop, and therefore I needed a bigger battery in order to be able to hold the voltage in order to be able to fly the machine how I like to fly. You'll notice at the end of the flight, we're going to get about a 2-minute and 27-second flight here, but at the end of the flight, you're going to see some jerks, and that is typical of what I have found when your battery starts to get weak. There could be a benefit, I say could, as it's unfounded as of yet, of the BT2 connector on a good battery like a GNB battery, and you might want to do that switch if you're a tinkerer sort of type. I do think I'm going to pursue that here, but I'm also going to need to buy a bunch of connectors because I want to have good batteries to try the BT2 connector on rather than just sticking with the beta FPV batteries, which I don't think are very good. So more than just this flight where I'm kind of racing around and I'm trying to max the performance out, I'm trying to fly this thing as fun as I can fly it so that you know from a guy like me, a guy that's, you know, not young by any stretch, how he flies it in his house. Now I get it, we have a big house, we live in the Midwest, real estate is cheap, we've got a nice open floor plan, we've got good video reception in our house. Turn off your Wi-Fi if your video reception is bad in your house. Also change your position. Those are really the only 2 hints I can give you. If I fly from different locations in my house, my video reception goes way down. In short, I think even if you don't want this quad, you're probably going to end up buying one of these quads because of the revolutionary camera from RunCam and that all-in-one board. Tiny Whoop Racing, Tiny Whoop Fun is all about weight, power to weight ratio. And when you have that board with the VTX, with the receiver, the flight controller, and the ESC, all as part of one lightweight board, it's going to be really hard to beat that weight. And there's no way I could have flown it this way. If you go back and look at my Meteor 65 video, I'm sure you'll find that I'm flying significantly faster. I haven't compared myself, but you can do that comparison, and you'll probably find that I am flying a lot faster and more aggressively. So this is just a sample. I'm just trying to slow down a little bit just to show you that you don't have to whiz around. Flying is fun. Have whatever sort of fun you like to fly. I should mention that I flew the higher kV motors because I like the feel of those motors a little bit better. I think if you're more of a cruiser flight, you should go with the 19,000 kV motors and you'll get significantly more flight time. You know, I only got 2.5 minutes out of my original flights. I could get 236 every once in a while, but usually my faster flights came in around 225, 226, somewhere in there. But I think if you had the 25,000 kV version motors, most people are going to get around 3 minutes of flight. But if you get the 19,000 kV motors, you'll probably get 4+ minutes of flight. It all depends on how heavy you are on the throttle, how fast you're wanting to fly. But I did kind of cruise it around the house a little bit. I do hear Patrick J. Clark is working on Emu Flight and maybe a Project Mockingbird for this product. I do think this is probably going to end up being one of the hotter products, at least for this winter. I can't imagine anything coming out that's going to be lower weight and higher performing. So that's something that I'll give you up front. Many times I don't give my opinion, or oftentimes I'll give my opinion very late in the video. I think you're going to want to buy this quad either for its parts or either to fly it around, because it's probably going to be difficult if you're a tiny whoop racer to find something that you can buy that performs this well at this weight. And because it is a new camera, I thought it was pertinent to take it outside and to do a little bit of camera testing. You can fly the quads outside. If it's cold and you crash, do expect the frame to break. You know, plastic doesn't like to be cold, and in my area, it is cold. We're going to check out how the light handling is. I do several tests where I cover the lens by touching the cloth on the lens, and then I move it different distances away from the lens and pull it away. We're also going to look around at all the scraggle that we have in the backyard, so you can pick out the branches and kind of judge maybe fisheye. We've got that pergola there. You can judge that. Also, you can see distance. You know, just take in the camera for all it's worth. It is probably the lightest camera lens on the market, and when we get back to the desk, I'll do a little comparison over another camera, but there might be another camera out there that I don't have that could be about the same weight. But I thought this camera itself was also pretty remarkable. This is another inside test, but it's dark. I actually intentionally left some of the lights off inside, so you can see kind of the front section of the house, the lights aren't on, and the lights in this living room area, they're not very bright. So I wanted to give you an idea. Maybe you have, actually what I thought about is when I was a young dad and I had a baby that, you know, maybe the baby isn't bothered by the whirring of the props through the air, but light does bother the baby, and maybe you're trying to take in a game or something and you want to go for a quick flight at halftime or something. That this was kind of the what I was shooting for and showing you this footage is, you know, if a mom or a dad wants to go for a fly and baby's sleeping, but you got to have most of the lights off, you know, you can kind of that sleeping light, so to speak, that you could possibly do this. You can see relatively well. You can't see great. Of course, when I get into those real dark areas up by the front door, it gets pretty difficult. But for the most part, I thought it did a pretty reasonable job. I think it's actually darker than it presents here in the DVR. And in the goggles, it's not as dark as the DVR presents. But I wanted to give you a sample of that because, again, this is a new camera, and it's probably one that's going to be dominating, at the very least, the micro market and possibly the hoop market. Let's get right to a camera comparison of the OV321, which weighs 1.77 grams, and the Runcam Nano 3 with its backing, weighing in at 1.13 grams. I mentioned the backing being on the back of the camera because Happy Model has removed it off the camera inside the Mobula 6, saving weight at every turn. Little view of the motor. We still got bushings. We don't have a PCB at the bottom, which is kind of a new thing. You can always put your favorite motor in here if this isn't one of them. But this gives you an idea of the air gap and the magnet spacing. And we've got C-clips on the top and the bottom. Also, I need to mention the connector. Those are solid pin connectors. That's the best possible PH2 connection. Instead of using the rolled or folded pins that we've seen in the past, these are soldered onto the wires rather than crimped on. Well, let's go into the damage report here. You know, I've flown it around like a madman, which I typically do, and the really only damage I have to report is actually down here of all places. It's these two pieces that rest for the battery tray. They both broke. They didn't last long. What I did to remedy that was I took a little bit of foam, put it underneath. I took a loom band, which I have 3 kids. 2 of them are girls, so I have lots of loom bands around. But I actually bought a pack. It's funny, isn't it? So Daddy could have his own loom bands. I put my loom band on there like that. I run my battery through there. You probably wouldn't even need the foam, but I put it on there anyways. And that holds the battery in place actually better than it does in just the battery tray itself. So the battery breaking for me was not a big deal, but it's something I need to disclose to you. As you can see here, the camera is actually mounted with a little bit of a mount of its own that mounts into the canopy. And I should have mentioned in that damage report, no, I didn't replace the canopy with a fresh one. This is the only one I've been flying, and I don't see any reason why I need to change it. It's in perfectly fine shape. But so if you buy the camera and you want to mount it to something like this, I don't know if the camera comes with this little mount or not, but that appears to be some sort of molded plastic. I don't believe that's 3D print, but I'm sure someone can design one. The PID tube that I have on screen is a combination of the work of Don Johnson, Team Happy Model pilot, and some tweaking that I did to make it feel like I wanted it to feel. I like to have it a little bit more snappy. Might not be great for smooth flight, like if you're wanting to do some sort of flowy freestyle like Nathan Loops, another Happy Model team pilot does, but it was what I needed in order to be able to fly it in the house and have the fun that I like to have. I think the last thing to cover is the receiver. You are not going to get good range. If you want to fly this outside, I wouldn't expect to get it more than, say, 50 yards at most away from you. Even in the house, which is a little bit of a tougher environment, I was getting RSSI callouts. I know you couldn't hear them because I got tired of listening to them. So on my radio, I turned the volume way down. I was still getting the vibration from my radio for low RSSI, but it's just not going to have great range. I didn't have any problem with fail-safes. Of course, I didn't focus it on flying outside. Matter of fact, I'm not even going to include an outside flight. This thing is so light that even with a big battery, if you have the slightest breeze outside, it is going to be difficult to fly this and have much of a fun time outside. I would highly suggest you get one of these and only have one of these if you're just starting out. But I think if you're someone who likes quads and you fly a number of different quads, you should have something better to fly outside. Something like this just isn't going to fly outside very well. At this weight, this just isn't going to fly outside. You're going to be fighting the slightest of breeze all the time. You know, this is a lot of wind resistance all the way around. Any little breeze is just going to shove it off your path, and you're just going to be fighting to keep it out of bushes and out of harm's way. The Mobula 6 is currently on pre-order, and it is on sale through the end of the year. The sale price that they have listed on Banggood site is $79. I've got a coupon code down in the video description that should bring the price down to about $72.68. And I think this is going to be, as I said earlier, the hot whoop for this winter. If you're looking to learn to fly, flying indoor gives you a lot of time to fly. It's also safe. It's got those hoops around those props, but keep it away from long hair and pets. And if you have any problems with the performance, check the motors for hairs. And if you want to get more serious about your hooping, this is my preferred charger, the HTRC X4. This goes for about $40. You can charge 4 batteries at a time, and it can control the rate, does regular as well as high voltage lipos, and it's fast to operate. That's the one thing about this little charger that I really love, is that you press the buttons and they respond pretty quickly. You can get all 4 charging or stop all 4 pretty quick, just about as fast as you can press the buttons. And I'll have a link to this charger down in the video description as well. So where are you at? Where do you think of the performance? For 1S, I thought it was really dang good. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.